We're now going to call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. on March 10th. And this is a meeting of the City of Portland's Police Accountability Commission Subcommittee on Bylaws and Internal Processes. If the Spanish language interpreter, Maria,
Hi.
can give the information in Spanish language interpretation now, that would be lovely.
Okay. Vamos a llamar a la orden a la reunión del subcomité de responsabilidad policíaca de la ciudad de Portland. Son las 7 de la tarde, el 10 de marzo de 2022.
Thank you so much. Finally, the closed captioning is turned on in Zoom.
Christine?
Yes.
We also have ASL.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, I would like to introduce our ASL interpreter, Mary.
And there's, I think,
and Ashley. Thank you both for being here this evening. And again, we have closed captioning is turned on in Zoom, is another means of assistance, but please note this is automatic captioning service and is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance for future public meetings, either as a response to public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This meeting is a public meeting and subject to the City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon state law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and or discussing issues and things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A function. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during the meeting and future meetings and agenda topics. We'd like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and the answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click on the Q&A icon in the middle of your screen. I would like to give my personal land acknowledgement this evening. I do this.
Would you like me to interpret now, or would you like me to go into the Spanish channel?
Oh yes, please go to the Spanish language channel. It should be open. Thank you so much. The purpose of my land acknowledgement is to center the traditional native inhabitants of the land upon which we live. I want to respectfully acknowledge the Chinook, the Clatskanie, the Clackamas, the Kalapuya, and the Multnomah, noting that the Clackamas and the Multnomah are not on this map because of the genocide that occurred in the creation of this country. I acknowledge the stewardship of this land throughout the generations, and I pay my personal respects to their elders, both past and present. So the commission began meeting in December. In this organizational phase that we're now in, is expected to go to the end of March. After the full commission determines the scope and the agenda later in March, The commission will move into the next phase of work and develop the parameters for the new police accountability system before presenting that to the council in 2023 for their consideration and approval. Today's meeting's primary objective is to continue discussion of the bylaws, of the draft bylaws. We have set up 3 work sessions to finish the detailed review of the draft bylaws. This is the second, and there is one more on March 12th. In the second half of March, the full commission will meet to organize and consider all organizational phase documents, including the bylaws. They'll review them, then take public comment, and then finalize them. This slide is the current project plan for the organizational phase of the PAC. It's not their agendas and it's not set in stone. The slide is mostly for members of the public to be able to understand how the commission gets from now to the end of March, and after which the commission will begin its work in earnest with discussions of policing and police accountability. Today's meeting is in the middle row toward the right in the green with the yellow outline. As always, we look to our community agreements to be able to have these deep and important conversations. I'm going to give us a moment to be able to read these community standards to yourself.
Thank you, Christine.
I would love to see a thumbs up for these community agreements. Jason, do I see one? CMOB?
Yeah, CMOB was, he gave
Very
those.
good. Thank you. Dan, I think I saw your thumb also. Yes, thank you so much. Over to you, Ayamide.
Thank you. And I guess the next order of business is Lovisa. Do you want to go over the overview of what today's meeting is going to be?
Sure, thanks. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, thanks everybody. Just briefly, as you know, we've already had several meetings about this. Thank you everyone for putting in so much work. We've done so much good work on this doc, and I think we can get really close. Today we'll be talking mostly about items related to officers and membership. So I think these items are somewhat grouped by subject, and yeah, if we can knock out a bunch of these items today, hopefully we can have a very short and productive meeting on Saturday and get to the last few Roman numerals. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Lovisa. Okay, before we go into it, I just want to remind folks to please keep individual comments about 1 minute in length, but speak as often as you like. Please allow me to facilitate. Please please also recommend what you like to see change, and before looking in all your comments. I guess what the first item looks like, it's the officers section. Is that where you want to go?
Yeah, we can go there. Yeah, okay, so let's start off with officers. If you have a paper copy, it's you can turn to page 9 is where it starts, Roman numeral 8A. Last time we had a discussion about officers where we got to some consensus around having multiple officers. I think in particular 3 was a number that the group really liked. So we have a couple of options here. This is sort of a kind of a, I don't know, decision point. We would love to get to a place where we have some consensus as a group about what language we would like to recommend to the full PAC, recognizing that the full PAC will, of course, be the one making the definitive vote about this, and that if they don't like it, they could always send it back to us. But I would love to get to a place with language where everyone can live with what we're sending to the PAC, and hopefully where everybody likes it. So taking a look there, we have the officers of the commission shall consist of, and then we'll need to choose 3 co-chairs or 2 co-chairs and an alternate co-chair. And if anybody would like to speak in particular about either of those options or another way of framing this, please do. But I do want to indicate that Commissioner Zoe is not here tonight, but that they mentioned in an email to co-chairs earlier that they prefer the option of 2 co-chairs and an alternate chair. So that being said, I want to open up the floor for other comments. And I see Sophia's hand.
Oh, you're on mute, Sophia. We can't hear you speak.
Okay.
Okay, we can hear.
Thank you, guys. I'm sorry about that. I have a comment and a suggestion, I guess, sort of together for the co-chairs. And I'm not going to talk about whether it should be co-chair or, you know, the language right now. What I wanted to talk a little bit more about was some of the obligations of the co-chairs. So similar to how we reworded the facilitators, I would like to include some wording similar that they would abide by, you know, the communication standards, as well as, and this is an off parking lot kind of thing. I was also thinking of adding, suggesting to the group at some other point to include in our community standards ethical behavior. That is not there right now. But if anyone has any ideas, you know, my goal is to just bring that to the group and suggest that, one, we include some verbiage similar to the ones that we have as for the facilitators, and also at a later date, we could go back. I don't know when we have a time to do that, but for the community standards, just those to have some ethics standards included in that.
Thank you, Sophia. So I guess I think it might be possible that we have language somewhere else in the document.
Yeah.
About members in general operating under certain recommendation or under certain standards. So if we do have language somewhere else, do you think that, do we need to add it in particular here for the co-chairs or for the officers?
You know, is it possible to show me where that is? I don't remember it, and maybe I missed it.
Hold on. We can see.
My concern, I mean, my thought is the co-chairs, you know, this is such a big job for all of us. And, you know, honestly, we work for the commission. And as I look at my position as a co-chair for the commission, my job is to represent the needs of the whole commission and not just subcommittees. So a lot of times you can hear me say things and I'm referring back to the full commission, but I believe that's kind of my job, to look out for the full commission, even though their subcommittees have their charge. And that's similar to what a facilitator would kind of do, making sure that everyone is being treated fairly. And in the co-chairs, either subcommittee or full commission, they have that same responsibility. And I'm not sure, I understand what you're saying. It's probably somewhere else. I don't see it, but I don't think it would hurt to have that in there somewhere. But that's my thought, and I would like to hear comments from the group if anyone else has any comments on that.
Sure. So just a quick thought is we do have interim community standards, and we do have some language under general operating procedures about creating a respectful and inclusive space, where I think we'll probably have language like something to the effect of the commission will reinforce its commitment to a respectful and inclusive space by acknowledging the community standards as needed. It's not super specific there to co-chairs having that duty, but it does sort of say that the commission will have that duty. But I would love to hear Catherine or anyone else with thoughts.
Yeah, Lavisa and Sophia, I was just going to point out that in the conflicts of interest section, it does require compliance with the entirety of the governmental ethics requirements, which goes beyond conflicts of interest. So it may get to, when you talk about ethical behavior, Sophia, that may get there. And then there's another section that is toward the end that has a mechanism that if somebody is acting out of sync with our community guidelines, then the commission as a group can recommend that they be asked to resign or request their removal. So my sense is, I think, Lavisa, when you were saying that was covered in other sections, I think those are two other areas that cover what Sophia was talking about. We could make them more specific about the leadership, but I think the leadership would be covered in these sections already. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Just taking a look at Sophia, do you see also under A5, the co-chairs will encourage full and safe participation by representatives in all aspects of the process? So we do have some language here in this officer section about the co-chairs having a duty. But I do want to mention that we have talked about having an operating document, and we've started a list of things that would go in an operating document. So if we wanted to elaborate on this even more, I would suggest that we add that to the list of things that we could discuss further in an operating document.
Sophia?
I'm sorry, my connection disconnected, so I didn't hear anything. As you guys mind just recapping real quick?
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Catherine mentioned that there is another subsection that requires members to abide by certain
ethics code. I see.
Yeah,
right.
governmental ethical standard.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that in this officer section under 5, we have language saying the co-chairs will encourage full and safe participation.
Sounds good.
So do you think that that's satisfying? I also mentioned that we have talked about having an operating document, so we could always add further language specifying that to an operating document.
For now, I'm fine. I just wanted to make sure we had that at least somewhere. And I would have to just review everything again together and to know whether, to be able to say, but right now as long as it's in there somewhere, I'm happy. Okay.
Definitely. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Oh,
Catherine?
sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, did you recognize me? I couldn't.
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to go out of turn if I.
Nope, you're good.
So I guess I just wanted to ask a question about whether you considered the alternate co-chair designating that person as vice chair, and if what the thinking was about making that person an alternate instead of having the role of vice chair. I just wondered if there was kind of a more intuitive sense of the role of vice chair than an alternate co-chair. It's not a big issue for me. I just had that question.
No, thanks, Catherine. I think that would really clarify that the third co-chair does have duties, and would it be expected to be active as a co-chair as opposed to an alternate, which I think may give the impression that they don't step into co-chair roles unless one of the two co-chairs is unable to discharge their duties. So I would say in general, I'm in favor of that. I like that language. Debbie?
So I kind of prefer the 3 co-chairs. I can picture sort of a little executive team or whatever. And to me, it's nice for everybody to be equally informed when they're trying to, work out all the details our current co-chairs have been doing over the last month. But I'm also like, I can live with whatever on this. I mean, I'm glad we're thinking about a more, multiple teams. So again, that's just my preference. It's not something that, I would be totally upset if we went a different direction.
Dan?
Hi, I'm Dan Handelman, he, him pronouns here, and hello to the 3 people in our audience today. The alternate co-chair language came from the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing Bylaws, and so I just brought that over when we were talking last time. I'm not attached to it. I think if we want to have 3 people who are all called co-chairs, that's okay. I agree with Ms. Iona. I think it's better, and in terms of, we've had a pretty vibrant discussion about trying to be horizontally set up so that there's nobody who is hierarchically above the other. So I don't think that vice chair fits with that that vision that was expressed last time. So I think we should probably go with the 3 co-chairs. That's my proposal or my suggestion.
Sophia?
So may I ask, with the 2 co-chairs and an alternate co-chair, I know I heard her talking about what is the meaning, or what would the alternate do, and how would that work? I don't know who suggested that, but maybe they can reiterate how that would work. I'd be interested to hear.
I don't remember that being a part of the conversation last time. I know folks had mentioned just wanting to have more of a horizontal group.
Yeah, I just see it highlighted.
Useful for you to, if anyone else remembers anything different, please speak now.
I think to some extent that's up to us, what it might mean to have an alternate co-chair, although Commissioner Handelman, if you have any experience of what it's like for another meeting to have an alternate co-chair, please let us know.
Well, I mean, it is essentially what was just described a minute ago, that person steps in when the other 2 co-chairs can't run a meeting. But I don't think it necessarily implies that they're not part of meetings where the agenda is being discussed. So if we want to lay out the roles of all three and say that, you know, the alternate co-chair also comes to meetings, then we can leave the alternate language in there. But I've already suggested, I think that language of co-chair should apply to all three. So I'm happy just either way. So
if there is consensus on the the language of three co-chairs, if the group has consensus of that, I see there's a Sophia has a question. Also,
I feel a little awkward because I wasn't at the first half of that meeting when it was all discussed, so I'm trying to catch up a little bit about the language for the co-chairs. I'm trying to get my words. I'm so sorry, and I'm trying to get my words together. So the purpose of three chairs, as I can remember, was so they can split up the duties and have more time for each individual to, just to keep the workload down. Is that the goal of the three?
I see nodding's ahead, and then Dan, and then Catherine.
Well, I can let Commissioner McDowell go first.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I was only going to offer that I think it was both a workload issue and the bringing of multiple perspectives, combining of multiple perspectives in our leadership to ensure that, the very intentional, combining of perspectives in our commission was also reflected in our leadership. So I think that was the multiple, at least the purposes that I got out of our last meeting. And while I've got the floor, I'm just going to say that I'm totally happy with three co-chairs, and particularly like the idea that we would not have to spend a lot of time defining what an alternate co-chair would be. So I would, I think I immediately was heading there, and I would appreciate going there if we can avoid the defining a term that we ultimately are not going to use.
Thank you, Catherine. Dan, did you have any more comments?
Yeah, well, no, I think I was the first person to raise the idea of having a third. And one of my concerns, having watched a lot and participated in a lot of organizations, is that if you have two people in charge and they disagree, there's no way to solve that problem. And right now, the only way to solve that problem is if the staff, who's also probably going to be in most of these meetings, makes the decision. And I wanted to make sure that we have it so that there's three members of the commission there. So if need be, there can be a vote of 2 out of the 3, so things can move forward without it being at a standstill. And the example I used is that if one person wanted to invite somebody to a meeting and another person didn't, you can't both have somebody at a meeting and not have somebody at a meeting. So, but then a third person can weigh in and make the deciding vote, such as it is, so that we can move forward without being stuck and having to bring everything back to the full commission to decide among the team that's designing our agendas. So I think that's going to be a practical reason to have 3.
Is your hand still up?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm listening, and I do understand the concern. But my question to the group is, it won't be 2 people. It will be the co-chairs of the subcommittees and the co-chairs of the commission. The discussions, at least this is the way we've been having them so far, is these discussions all go together, because it won't be one against the other in a sense. You won't have that. I'm not seeing that kind of dynamic, Dan, that you're talking of, because there's more co-chairs out there, and that's the way we've been working it so far, especially since we're still in the consensus phase, which has worked really well. I haven't seen that as being an issue. My other comment is, our commission, I hear a lot of references to the other different groups, and our commission is our commission. It's not someone else's commission, and it doesn't have to be like someone else's. And I understand the concerns with the experiences that people have had, but what I want to express here is that this is our commission, and we can make it the way we want to, and we don't have to. I think we're a different group of people. That's just my words. As my opinion, I don't think we are those other people in those other groups. And I don't think we should structure ourselves around what other people have done. I think we should look at what has worked well and what has not worked well, and go from there and see what works for us. And from my point of view at this point, the co-chairs have worked really well together. And I can't speak for what could happen in the future, but I believe if we're all abiding by the rules of standards of our communications, I don't see there being those types of issues if we abide by them. If we abide by the ethics, if we abide by the rules of discourse, and the rules of listening. That's my opinion. I don't see it. And then of course, going to 3 people, I think it's still it's very hard to get schedules together. And I just think it's adding to your workload rather than taking away. Because you just there's more moving parts. There's more to keep up with. And that's just my thoughts.
Lavisa.
I just wanted to say,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sophia.
thank you, Sophia, for all of those points. We did have like a pretty strong agreement about having definitely multiple co-chairs, and we did get to a place of some consensus around having 3 people in some configuration last time. So I do want to respect that the group did talk about that, and obviously, we'll be bringing this to the full PAC, and the full PAC, can weigh in, will weigh in, and I'm sure will give us their opinions about all of this. But something I was thinking about was that I wanted to point out that there may be periods of time during when the commission is in session where there are not subcommittees and where they may not be co-chairs of subcommittees, kind of bringing more people into the balance of decision making. So if we do continue to have 2 co-chairs, there may be times where there's only those 2 co-chairs of the full commission who may be making decisions. So in terms of, casting a tie-breaking vote, there may be times where there are a lot fewer people in these officer roles.
Thank you, Lavisa. Also want to mention that the organizational phase, will continue on, and you'll be able to have more of these discussions about whether you have 3 or 2 co-chairs throughout April too. So this portion of the discussion can be pushed off to another date. And I see that Angie had her hand up. So I want to respect that and just also give you all a time check of 7:34, just so you know how long we're, staying on this subject and the need to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I will try to be very brief. I actually would like to, I don't want to drag this on forever because I do want to move on from the organizational phase sometime. And, but I am interested in hearing a little bit more fleshed out information about what a vice chair would be, because I 3 co-chairs, I understand where Sophia is coming from, and coordination would be hard, but having having 2 co-chairs and then having a vice chair that has a very specific duty, not just being the alternate, that does sound interesting to me because in the next phase, we're going to have different subcommittees. We're going to have different duties for all the officers. And, you know, maybe that vice chair will be handling something different, or we decide that vice chair, if that's how we decide to go with the two co-chairs and a vice chair, maybe that duty might be something that's very specific that the co-chairs wouldn't have to meet with them, that person every week about. And who knows, maybe that vice chair would then agree to be a co-chair in the next phase. You know, that's how we can get our victims of co-chairs in the next phases, right? So anyway, I think that I would like to maybe I don't want to make every piece of this drag out forever and ever, but I think maybe having a little bit more clarity about what a vice chair would be a really good thing. And that's just my opinion. Thank you.
If it's okay, I'll just respond to that because I think I might have a solution somewhat on that topic. We did talk a little bit about this last meeting, and we did write some language to the effect the co-chairs may determine how to share or allocate the tasks listed above amongst themselves. So I think that gives the co-chairs, if we have 3 co-chairs, for example, that gives the co-chairs the flexibility to determine amongst themselves, you know, perhaps like one person does, you know, have a more specific role. So in terms of, yeah, I was going to say we can do that. We can have that discussion, but also we can go with 3 co-chairs and leave it up to the co-chairs to determine who does what.
Debbie?
That's something I sort of thought about when we originally were talking about this idea of 3 is once you get those 3 together, let's trust them to work it out amongst themselves, how they want to divide the responsibilities. And then we won't have to, you know, try to figure out how all this works. I mean, I think when you have 3 people, I would think that they would, you know, ought to be able to sort it out. They can come back and tell us what they decide, or they can just get it done. So I just think that us trying to envision every little thing right now is kind of hard.
Thank you, Debbie. I see other folks nodding. Sophia, does that sound like there's more, does that inform you more? Since I know you were not at that part of the meeting.
Yes, it does. I appreciate everyone taking the time to kind of keep me up to speed about that. And I also agree that I don't want to just drag this out either. You know, having you guys been there looking through this for a longer period of time than me. But I do like Angie's idea. There are some things, positive things about the 3, I have to admit. I understand we don't want to go flushing it out at this moment. So I'm good with the 2 or 3 and having more discussion about what the 3rd person may or may not do, or if we would find that we don't need a 3rd person, that we would be able to change that as well.
Thank you, Sophia. Again, I would advise that we move on to the next portion of this if possible. It seems that there's some consensus about.
I want to make sure, I'm sorry, but I just want to make sure what that consensus is.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. That there's consensus about talking about like the roles of those co-chairs, the multiple co-chairs. And I believe there was another document that you all were going to put comments and hash out. the details of what the co-chairs roles and responsibilities and, you know, that kind of language. Am I correct? I just wanted to make sure that I'm saying this correctly. Lavisa, Jason.
Well, yeah, I was going to say we certainly can include language in the operating document. I think, I would love to get a sense of, do we have consensus around the idea of
Yes.
3 co-chairs, or does anyone feel very strongly against the idea of 3 co-chairs? And yeah, maybe we can do thumbs up.
Yeah. Yes, good.
Okay, yes.
And then
yeah.
I know that you had discussed an operating document, and that consensus was formed because people would have the ability to be able to have more detail put in that document for y'all to be able to work with.
Yeah, that's, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Sophia?
no apologies.
I don't want to cut in line, but.
No. I love the group. It's all the group. I see someone's hand up. I believe Sophia, your hand's up again. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to know that we're in consensus about, and not the document, I can't see it right now, but the first, I don't know, was it 5 or 6? I don't know why I can't see the document. Am I the only one not able to see it?
I can see it. Might be.
I've been having some problems with my screen. I don't know why, but mine kind of went blank with the views of pictures and everything. So it's just the first few, maybe if you just tell me, since I can't see it, the first, I think it was I through 5 or 6, or was it?
The rest of the officer and subcommittee portion.
I guess I was looking at the liaison part. So if we haven't gotten to that, just excuse me, I'm sorry. I was just thinking we were talking about the co-chair, the terms of 3 co-chairs, the idea of 3 co-chairs.
Yes, that is specifically what we were talking about. And
okay.
Starting on just now.
That's all, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sophia, if you try turning off your video, your computer might get back in, because I can see that your video is turned off also. So
I just turned it. Yeah, I don't know. I've been having problems all day with my internet and stuff. So I'm trying, and just I'll get back if I have to come back on. Thank you guys.
Okay, great. Oh, sorry. Dan.
Well, Co-Chair Lloyd, if you wouldn't mind, can you just read what we have now decided on into the record so we all know what we're talking about?
Definitely. Thank you for the reminder. Officers. The officers of the commission shall consist of 3 co-chairs whose renewable term corresponds to a phase of work or approximately 90 days approved by the commission. Sounds good. Debbie?
So I have a question. One thing I think would be, and this may be what this language says, is I think it would be good if of the 3 co-chairs have the option, if they want, to stay on longer than 90 days. And when you read what this says, is that what it means to you? That if they choose to kind of renew or re-up, it's that the door is open for that.
That is my understanding of the intent around the
Good.
word.
Okay, good. That's how I read it too. I just want to double check, because I do think that if people are willing to stay in that position for a longer period of time, I think it just really helps with learning curve and continuity and all of that. So but I also understand if people say I can put in 3 months and that's it on that. So yeah, but we can go either way. So okay, good. Thank you.
Sophia?
Short comment. Thanks, Debbie. I actually was thinking about that and it popped out of my mind when we were talking about continuity. And I think I brought this up at the last meeting, but I think that the third person could split the terms or something like that. Maybe that's a good use so we can have continuity, you know. I don't know. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I was thinking about it and I just totally forgot. But I think that's another benefit of 3.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so returning to the document and moving forward, there were some edits offered for item 5. I think essentially it would be removing this language regarding the definition of safety. So the language under discussion is the co-chairs will encourage full and safe participation by representatives in all aspects of the process, assist in the process of building consensus, and ensure all participants abide by the Commission's operating procedures. Motion to strike. Safety is defined that no idea shall be met by personal attacks or other demeaning responses, even if there is disagreement. And I think the suggestion might be to move this. Do we need this definition of safety here? Could we move this to an operating procedures doc? Just to simplify this section. Debbie.
Is that covered in some of those other things we worked on? I don't remember the titles of them, but you know, I felt like a lot of what we wrote talks about how we interact with one another, and you know, so I felt like we did a very comprehensive job on those. So, but yes, so I don't think this is necessary myself.
I would tend to agree. I feel like this is covered somewhat by the question that we talked about earlier about ethical conduct, operating standards, our interim community standards. Yeah, we have a lot of definitions already. Any other thoughts or discussion? Do we have consensus around striking this language? Thumbs up. All right.
Looks like we got everyone's thumbs up.
Thank you. And thank you, Samir, for all of your wizardry. Okay. Okay, next item. Next item, item 6, the co-chairs will also serve as or select a liaison between the members of the commission and the city. I actually think that we can, my suggestion would be actually that we leave the language of serve and add this to either added to an operational doc or consider it to be covered by the item below it. The co-chairs may determine how to share or allocate the tasks listed above amongst themselves. So my suggestion would be to keep the language of serve as liaison. Sophia?
I just wanted to mention that the staff as well serve as liaison between the members and the commission. So putting this here, I'm concerned about how that might, how do we rectify that if this is here? How does that work? When their job title says that they're the liaison, the staff between the commission and the city.
I guess I don't think that it needs rectification because this is particularly describing the roles of the co-chairs. But Samir, do you want to chime in? Do you have any thought about this?
Yeah, so I agree with Lavisa's read on it in the context of serve as. Select might imply that they could go, say something that disagrees with a job description, but serve as would mean that it's not exclusive in my personal view, but that's my read of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want just me to talk in, but I'd like for, the co-chairs to be able to do that as well. It's kind of why I was asking, but I did want to think about coordination of that type of activity, some language to that, how it might be done.
Are you saying that you're looking for a language like that to be in the bylaws, or would that be okay to be in an operating?
It can be in operating. I just don't want it to be forgotten. And then someday we get to it and we got our co-chairs saying one thing and our staff saying something else. I just wanted to make sure there was some way to coordinate that. So that's all.
Dan?
All right, so I'm sorry I'm confused again. I don't feel like I'm understanding. Are we talking about section 6 or section 8? And if we're talking about section 6, I see two different words there. It says the co-chairs will also serve as or select, I suppose, a liaison between the members of the commission and the city. So
we were talking about 6 to answer the first question.
What's that?
I said we were talking about 6 to answer your first question.
So that, and 8, it says share or allocate the task listed above. So perhaps in 6 we could say one or more of the co-chairs will serve as liaison between members of the commission and the city. And that way, when we say later, they can determine how to allocate the tasks. We won't necessarily have all 3 trying to be the liaison with the city at the same time without talking to each other about how they're going to do that.
Sophie?
Suggesting one or more of the co-chairs.
Well, it wasn't all about the co-chairs. I agree with you on that, Dan. I was talking about the staff. It also has that in their job description. So the coordination between the co-chairs and the staff is where I was going with that. Not just the co-chairs by themselves.
I understand, Commissioner Glenn. I wasn't responding to what you were saying. I was just trying to understand the language we were looking at. Thank you, though.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
Thank you.
Further? Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Lavisa.
Oh, sure. I was going to ask any further comments, or can we get consensus around adopting this language with Commissioner Handelman's changes and with the use of the word serve? One or more of the commissioners will also serve as liaison between the members of the commission and the city. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. Okay. All right. That looks like we have consensus around that. Thanks, everyone. All right, moving on to item 7. In consultation with the facilitators and the staff, the co-chairs will develop meeting agendas, establish subcommittees if needed, ensure quarterly reports are given to the City Council, and ensure an efficient advisory process. So in terms of, establish subcommittees if needed, that language is a little confusing because under the next section, there is also some language about establishing subcommittees. So I would say let's circle back to that in a moment. And see, sorry, Samir, is ensure quarterly reports are given to the city? Is that a suggested change? That was a suggestion that was made last time, I think.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was from the March 5th meeting.
Okay, got it.
Debbie?
So one question I have about this section is it seems like we've informally decided, maybe, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but that the full commission is asked for suggestions about what should be included in the agenda. to be passed on then to the co-chairs to work out with the staff and facilitators. So I feel like this doesn't mention that, and that if it's someplace else, then that's fine. But I kind of feel like the full commission needs to be able to keep sending ideas and suggestions to the co-chairs.
Thank you.
About agenda items.
Sorry to interrupt you. Thank you so much, Debbie, for bringing that up, because I totally forgot that I had in my notes a suggestion for a change on this that reflects that, and also reflects Commissioner Handelman's suggestion. Had made the suggestion meeting agendas developed in consultation not only with facilitators and staff, but also members of the commission or subcommittee, which I think is sort of to that same point.
Great.
And,
yes.
Yeah. So my suggestion there would be to add language after in consultation with facilitators, staff, and the commission. The co-chairs will develop meeting agendas, establish subcommittees if needed, ensure quarterly reports are given to the city council, and ensure an efficient advisory process. So that would be my suggestion to work that out.
Thank you.
Any other suggestions, comments, thoughts? Sorry, I'm timing us as we're going through this too. Try to keep it on.
Dan. And I see Dan.
I just think it should say and commission members, so that it doesn't sound like you have to make sure you have input from everybody if they don't have time or aren't interested, just to make sure that there's consultation made possible.
How people feel about that change as well? Does that look good? Let's see, thumbs. Okay, I think there's consensus for that change. And yeah, I was going to actually say that it's almost 8 o'clock. And we're down to subcommittees now, I believe, Lavisa?
Sure, I think so. Yes. Does anyone have anything else on the language and officers, or can we close that out? Do we feel pretty good about that? Feels good, looks good. I know, I'm smiling too. I'm very happy. Yay.
It's so good to be closing it out.
Yay.
Yeah. Great job, everyone. Good job.
So it's 7:58, and I know that our interpreters need breaks. Do you want to take about 5 and then come back and move on to the next section?
Sounds good. Thank you.
So 5. Thank you. Next section would would be subcommittees. Are we ready to go into that bag of worms?
Sure. Okay. So, okay. Actually, sorry.
No?
One or actually 2 final things on officers. There were 2 comments over on the right side of the document that I think had been put there because they didn't necessarily need to go into bylaws, but they were comments sort of related to officers. And I wanted to mention those 2 comments and advocate that we put them in the parking lot and for addition to an operating document. One was Commissioner Raynaud's suggestion that co-chairs would make a commitment to a warm handoff to future co-chairs. And the second was Zoe's comment about facilitation strategies, particularly the possibility of using a weighted stack. How do people feel about that? Do people feel, could I see if we have consensus around moving those documents to the parking lot?
I see consensus mostly. Sophia? Okay, we're good.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think we strictly need them in the bylaws, but I do think that they are good ideas and they should not be forgotten and they should be acknowledged. So, all right, on that note, let's move on to B, 8B, subcommittees. All right, so the language that we have here is for item 1, the commission may divide its members into subcommittees authorized to deliberate on items to be returned to the full commission for approval. And earlier, just now, we added language to officers that says, in consultation with facilitator staff and the commission members, the co-chairs will establish subcommittees if needed. Oh, Debbie, do you have a comment about this?
I just have a comment about it. When I read it, I'm totally in favor of subcommittees, but when I read that, it says may divide its members. It sort of feels like we take 20 of us and put 5 here, 5 there, 5 there, and 5 there, when it feels like we should say instead create or establish subcommittees instead of that may divide itself.
Mm-hmm. So the language would read, the commission may create or establish subcommittees authorized to deliberate on items to be returned to the full commission for approval.
Yeah, and I'm agnostic about whether it's create or establish, but yeah, I just divide it. I don't know, divide sounds fun.
I saw a thumbs up from Angie. Anybody else? Thumbs up with Catherine, Sophia, Jason. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, can't hear you. You're good? All right.
Okay, so we like that language. I think that is fine. And
just historical note, that just came right out of the Charter Review Commission language when I drafted this section. So
thank you, Dan. Okay. Anything else, or okay? If nothing else, we'll move on to item 2. Any commission member can volunteer to be on a subcommittee, but membership in subcommittees will be tracked to ensure quorum is met. Members who are not officially on subcommittees may attend meetings. I think we're all already abiding by these.
Any comments or no? It seems like, and do we have consensus that this language is okay? Sorry, it's hard to track sometimes because the screen goes back and forth. So just want to make sure that I got everybody. Jason, I know that you said your screen was lagging. Did you get all that? Okay, great. All right, I think we have consensus.
Item 3, subcommittee meetings are also subject to Oregon Public Meetings law and must abide by quorum requirements when voting.
I saw a thumbs up from Debbie. Any comments or questions? Fingers, everybody's twinkling their fingers. Seema, great.
I actually do like the twinkling fingers because it's a lot easier. It's actually a lot easier to
it's easier to see,
on the screen than the thumbs up is.
And Sophia, you were good? Okay, great.
Item 4, while subcommittees may engage non-members, only members may vote to approve reports and recommendations to be forwarded to the full body.
I see twinkling fingers again. I think there's consensus. Well, this is moving fast. Woo-hoo.
Thanks. I think most parts of that are hopefully not too controversial.
Yep.
All right, that's subcommittees. Moving on to membership and term, we'll be trying to cover, if possible, A, C, D, and E. I think still waiting back on. There's open questions or standing questions on item B terms. So let's go ahead and look at item A. Membership. The commission is comprised of 20 members. There are no alternate members. Dan?
Sorry, I did have a comment about B when we get to it.
Okay, I think the idea was that we would not talk about B in depth tonight, but I do want to hear your comment, so please go ahead.
Well, I wanted you to finish A first.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
I don't think that's controversial.
Okay, you're right. Let's finish A. Catherine.
So this gets into an issue that I think we concluded we needed to look at a little bit more deeply. I don't know if it was parking lot or, a kind of a follow-up legal analysis, but I think that this is connected to the quorum because I think that we were advised that under Oregon law, you normally do need a majority of the members of the commission. So one way to get around that is to define the commission as fewer than 20 if you have vacancies that have not been filled. So that I guess what I'm saying is I think one way to achieve our goal of inactive members not killing the quorum is for ultimately the membership of the commission at some point to be considered less than 20 if there are unfilled vacancies for some period of time. Then it's a way around that quorum requirement. So I guess I just want to note that I think this language is what makes sense, but there may be a tweak to this language to allow us. It's a possible workaround on that of the quorum issue that we discussed at our last meeting.
Debbie, you had comments?
Did you call on me?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay, sorry, quiet voice.
I know, I have to project more.
I love that idea, Catherine. Thank you for thinking of it, because I just keep envisioning that, some people will need to resign because of life or whatever, and will be stuck with not being able to get anything done because, if they don't replace people fast enough. So I thank you so much for coming up with this idea.
Yeah, I think it just needs to be something that gets sorted out with council and, because I think it does have some legal issues associated with it, but it just seemed to me to be one way around that. So I think we can go with this language for now, but it may be subject to change with respect to that issue around quorum.
Any other comments? Jason.
I suggest we add this to the list of things we should put in our quarterly report to the council, that we need some clarity about how they'll proceed if we don't have members. The PSEP is also, we talked earlier about the COAB suffering starvation. The PSEP is also suffering the same at this point. So it'd be good to have clarity of how they'll act. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Any other comments or questions? Is there any kind of consensus in regards to moving forward? Lisa? Dan, yes.
Maybe we should say it's comprised of a maximum of 20 members, and then that way, when we define when it's smaller, we're not stuck with saying, oh, but it says here you have 20 members. Right now we have 19 members.
Thank you, Dan. I see Sarah Ames.
Oh, I did just want to note that the City Council resolution in December of 2020 held that the commission will consist of 20 voting members. And so as Catherine McDowell mentioned, you know, this, if you do choose to redefine it, that would take some sense of the direction of the council, whether a formal vote or not. I mean, I know there's some concern about the council's commitment to maintaining a fully appointed commission. And I hear that, and I think that that is one thing that we should get council feedback on.
Can I just respond quickly, Sarah? If there's any other way to get around that quorum issue you raised at our last meeting, I'm open, you know, I'd love to hear it, but that was the one thing I could think of, is just having our membership, if after a certain period of time vacancies are not filled, then our membership is defined as something less than the initial 20. So, but I think Dan's solution is a good one. This language, I think, is flexible enough to allow for that evolution if we end up going there. And I think Jason's idea of talking, you know, raising this issue with the council also acknowledges what you're saying, Sarah, that this is something the commission would, or the council would need to give us feedback on. So thank you.
Jason?
Just a possible scenario, the groundwork that we're doing now to become better communicators with each other will only make this group more insular in the future and harder for someone new to come into and be effective. So it may make sense at some point, say we're 16 in 15 months, to not pursue having new people enter the commission and still be able to make decisions and act as a commission without having new people added. So there may be a point where new people would actually be detrimental. So I would endorse Catherine's idea that we'd be able to have, or at least ask to be able to have, perhaps a lesser number at another time.
Thank you, Jason. Sophia, your comments?
Just thinking about what Jason said, detrimental. Can you expand on that a little bit? I'm trying to understand why that would be a bad thing to have new members.
I think people coming in late in this process will not have the relationships that we're having beginning now, the bonding and the ability to communicate effectively with each other. They also wouldn't know the material. We're going to learn in the scope of work, and over the next few months, we're going to learn a huge amount of material that someone coming in 10 months from now may not have the opportunity to know. So it's sort of, it's just considering that future person might not be as helpful as just adding another person. It's not just, you're not just adding another person.
Can I comment to that again?
Yes.
My concern with that is, my idea is that the person may, I agree that they won't have the, historical knowledge of the group. And the bonding is something that just takes place as time goes on. And I think they should be afforded the opportunity to do that. And knowing that they were chosen because they have something to add to the group. I don't even know if I don't even know if we could say that because the commission actually says it's going to be 20 people. So I'm concerned about that. that idea, and I do understand some of the points you're making with, you know, new people coming in, but I think saying that we shouldn't have new people coming in at some point is not something that we should be doing as a commission. It sounds exclusive in some ways, and I don't think that's what we're trying to be here. I know you're trying to preserve the momentum, if that's the word you could use, but I'm just concerned about that. That's all. I'd just like to hear if any other folks have something to say.
Jason?
There's a workaround, which would be to have the council appoint some alternates. Some people who could join us now who would not be voting members, but would have the same experience and gather the same knowledge and be ready to step in if a position opened up to become a voting member.
CMOB?
Yeah, I mean, alternates hanging on for 18 months is, or 12 months, or whatever we determine the true end date is, might be a bit much still. I hear what Sophia's saying, and I agree with her in regards to bringing in someone, say like we're stuck at 19, we need to bring the 20th. We do that, we wind up in the same position again, we do that again. I think we would establish enough momentum, but also a good trail of homework for whoever we wind up bringing in. And I think there's already, with the specific scope, there's already a good good path to follow, as well as I'm pretty sure the selection process would be someone who would have a proper knowledge and buy-in, at least a base coming into this thing. So I wouldn't want to assume the worst out of bringing somebody in, but also not necessarily assume the best. If I look straight down the middle, I still feel good with bringing in somebody midstream or even towards the end.
Thank you, CMOB. Does anyone else have any comments or questions about this? Sophia? You're muted.
Just to round things off a little bit, if there's no other comments, I think that, you know, having the commissioners, maybe we should have some language in that we shouldn't have a vacancy, but for a minimum period of time to stop. So we don't want to have like 4 people gone and then get 4 new people at one time. Maybe, I mean, unless that's how it happens, right? But maybe we can have something, talk to the commissioners about having a minimum time for, or before they fill that position, the next position, trying to make sure we have that, we don't kill that momentum by bringing in a big group of people without the historical knowledge. I don't know. I think maybe there's another way to handle that. Just looking for other folks to, you know, chime in if they have any ideas.
Debbie?
So I'm just kind of curious, like, are there wheels in motion, or whatever the right little phrase is, to actually get our 20th person? I mean, is anybody looking at the applications that came in and working on finding somebody to fill in the vacancy that we have right now?
I believe Samir can answer that question.
Yeah, without giving a whole lot of detail about applicants by name or anything like that, the answer to Debbie's question about if wheels are in motion is yes. The council will eventually appoint somebody from the eligible folks that meet the requisite categories established in the resolution from December 2020. I don't want to say the number and get it wrong, but yeah, you can find it on the key documents part of our website, that resolution.
Okay, yeah, I just was curious because when I think about how long it took for them to appoint us, and we have an 18-month, time frame here, it just feels like unless they speed things up, replacing filling vacancies is going to be somewhat time consuming, it seems. So because if we were like 3 months from till our 18 months were up, at that point it's almost, it seems like it wouldn't even be able to happen that they could get somebody in there that fast, but time will tell.
Thank you, Debbie. I just want to give everyone a time check of 8:27. And I also know that there possibly will be people who will want to have public comment.
So I was gonna just jump in here. Just recognizing, the time and recognizing that probably this discussion portion of our meeting is probably going to need to end in about 10 or 15 minutes, so that we will have time for public comment and for all the housekeeping at the end of the meeting. I would recommend, if there isn't any further comment on this, that we table this discussion on this item. I have a sort of a list of, quorum questions, just items in the bylaws that are related to this sort of open question we have about quorum and what our legal quorum requirements are. So I think it might make sense to add that. And I would also like to hear Dan's comment about this and also about item B.
Thank you. Well, this it says here explicitly there are no alternate members, and I think what that means is that if one person steps out for a meeting, another person can't step into their place. But we might want to add, per Commissioner Renaud's suggestion, that council may create a pool of eligible candidates to fill empty seats or something like that. But that maybe that goes in the replacement part later. But just so they're not using the same word, alternate, to mean it's both the same thing or two different things. That's what I mean. That makes sense? Because Commissioner Renaud referred to what I just referred to as a pool of eligible candidates as alternates, but I don't think he meant them to be people who sat in when somebody was absent. Make sense? Am I making sense? Okay, so just want to make sure that somebody heard me. Thank you.
Sophia, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to say that now that Dan is mentioning that, I'm thinking of that definition of there are no alternate members a little differently now. Maybe I don't know where that comment came from, but when you said someone steps out of the room and somebody sits in your chair and they raise their hand for you to vote, right? Is that what that means? Like if I just can't be there, I'll send somebody else? Or does that mean there are just people who will come in when there's vacancies? So I'm just trying to, as I looked at it, I'm rethinking about maybe it means something different. So that's all. We can still table it, but for now, I don't mind.
Samir?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that proxy voting is actually referring to what Sophia just referenced, which is coming in or absentee voting, as the case may be. That this section relates to someone coming in and voting if a member is unable to be there. And maybe if Sarah Ames could clarify if she knows, maybe I don't want to put her on the spot, but whether alternate members in the other section relates to something like this or what Jason was referring to, that might be a helpful clarification in how the city interprets that.
I believe, and if this is a real point, we can check in on that, but the alternate members would be more, as Jason was suggesting, somebody who participates but does not have a vote until and unless they're appointed to a full membership position. Whereas the proxy is indeed kind of, as you described what Sophia said, if someone can't make a meeting, someone else votes in their place, kind of participates and votes in their place. So that's the distinction between alternate and proxy that as I understand it. Absentee voting is obviously like, I can't be there, but I want you to vote for me, this way, just kind of dialing in your vote.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there a consensus on tabling this issue? I see lots of sparkle fingers. Okay.
Okay, so item terms, and there are a lot of factors involved in this particular section, which is why we're going to give it a miss today, but Dan has a comment, and I would like to hear Dan's comment.
Thank you. Well, I was seeing a lot of comments on the draft, and I just want to make clear, the comments that I made about when the term started and stopped came from my participation in other meetings where this was discussed by city attorneys and people from the city. But I just pasted into the chat where you can find the amendments to the DOJ settlement agreement, which the City Council voted on February 9th, which explicitly state, and I'm not going to read the whole thing into the record here because I know we're short on time, but explicitly states our document to City Council. So basically the timeline, according to this document that the City Council voted on and the DOJ proposed and approved, and that's why it's going before the judge for final approval on April 29th, is that the 18-month timeline starts when the judge approves of these amendments, which could not be any earlier than April 29, but could be later. So that's where I'm coming from with the timeline. So if you just want to check, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the record that this is not stuff I'm pulling out of the air, that it came from something that's in writing that the City Council voted on.
Thank you, Dan. Any comments? All right. I believe we had consensus about tabling this issue. So...
Thank you, Dan. Yes, yeah, we can. Thank you for mentioning that and dropping that item into the chat so that everyone can review it. Debbie?
I just wonder, do we need to table it? Because, I mean, we don't really know what the date the court will actually finalize this thing, but we know that they would, they will. And if we just use that word with no date, say 18 months from the date that the judge finalizes the addendum to the agreement, that's when the clock starts. But I'm okay with tabling it too, so we can move ahead. I just was thinking, it seems like that's pretty clear.
Dan?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think that doing that means that we can vote on our bylaws this month instead of waiting till the end of April, and then have this in writing, and then we don't have to come back and revisit it later.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else want to chime in? Angie, Bob, Catherine?
I guess I'm just wondering if Sarah Ames agrees with that analysis, and seems I wasn't aware of this provision, so I really appreciate Dan bringing it up, and if that settles it, then great. But I just wonder if Sarah Ames has that view as well.
Thank you. And I thank Dan and Jason and Lovisa and everybody who's brought forward these kind of conflicting, like the series of city council resolutions kind of show an evolving timeline and they aren't entirely consistent. And as Dan noted, the most recent vote on the settlement agreement addendum does say 18 months from the time the order is entered. Of course, we had a first hearing on this in November before the court. They put it off to go later. So we had negotiated this 18 months and submitted that to the court in November. And then it's taken far longer than we had expected because we had to go back to mediation and, resubmit. So, that 18 months from the date the order, probably the intention originally wasn't that it wasn't going to be entered until late April at the earliest. So, there is a little bit of like, does the council really want to give you 18 months from late April to get your work done? Or would they like you to, stick with the 18 months from the meeting date? And I think some of the preliminary conversations with the council is that they would like to, although the official federal deadline might be 18 months from the date the order is entered, that their expectations might be that you wrap the work up. And I know you have a separate agenda, kind of a timeline and agenda that another group is considering or that you're going to be voting on as a commission. So I hadn't examined exactly how that fits. So I think this is, there was a reason to table this and we need to get some more clarity from the council one way or the other. But Dan is right that no later than 18 months after the order is entered is definitely the outer boundary of when the time is expected to continue. I think if we go that long, you might have more attrition than, than if you wrap earlier. So that's an important conversation.
Lovisa, you had your hand up. Thank you, Sarah. Did you take your hand down or was your question answered, Lovisa? You're muted.
It was. I want to just respect the clock and also respect the agenda and recognize that we're coming up right about the time when I think discussion probably needs to wrap up. So just recognizing that. But if there are any final comments on this.
Debbie?
What if we said something like no later than 18 months after the court issues its final order or whatever I'm not using the right terms, I'm sure, but and then, I definitely think it'd be great to get it done before whatever 18 months from the end of April is. But that way we're not saying we want to go 18 months, but that, unless they're planning to change that addendum before the end of April, then I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way we can say it so that it leaves some wiggle room, but acknowledges that the court has a role in what our deadline is.
Oh, I'm on mute. I'm the one that's on mute. Sophia, and then I know Lovisa, you were trying to wrap it up.
Wrap up. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going. My comments were, in because of our time limits, we can table this. I know we have another meeting on Saturday, and maybe it'll give us some time to think about this a little more, and hopefully maybe we can get it done quicker next time.
Is there consensus? on tabling this now? I see thumbs up, heads up. Okay, move it. Yes, perfect.
So I'd like to kind of take the temperature of the group. Apparently we did warn people that we might run long today. And so I wanted to ask, how do people feel about continuing for a few more minutes on these other membership items? Does anyone feel strongly that they would like to go to bed? Do we have general consensus to keep moving?
I saw lots of spirit fingers. I would say yes. And I'm going to throw in my spirit fingers, even though I'm not part of the commission in that way. I've been up since 4:30. You guys can power through it. I know you can.
Sure.
The finger thing makes you feel good. So.
It does.
Okay, so I wanted to recognize that we do also have public testimony on our agenda.
Yes.
And that there will be time for public testimony as well. Actually, can I ask?
I'm not sure to see if there's any questions in the Q&A. None yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we have anyone waiting? Because I don't want them to have to wait.
Let's just double check. There are 2 attendees. I guess do we want to move to public comment now? Is that what you're asking, Lavisa?
That is what I'm asking.
Okay. Okay.
Do we have anyone?
There's 2 people here, but I don't see anyone raising their hands at this moment. Just give me a second. If there's any public comment, we ask to keep their comments 90 seconds in length and focus on the draft bylaws. You can raise your hand in the Zoom if you'd like to be called on. And I don't see anybody's hand raised, so I think we're good to move forward, Lavisa.
Great, thank you so much. All right. Okay, moving on to C. C, the edited text that is on offer is, during a regular meeting, a member may propose requesting that the City Council extend the Commission's work for a specified period. If the Commission should agree to request this, City Council may then decide to extend and to reappoint commissioners to additional terms or extend terms.
Any comments? Are people happy with this language? I see spirit fingers. Yep.
Everyone can live with it?
Looks like we have consensus.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. All right. Item D, term limits. There are no term limits or limits on extending an existing commissioner's term.
I see 1 set of spirit fingers, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Looks like we have consensus.
Terrific. And then item E is proposed edit vacancies. This goes somewhat to the topic we were just talking about a little bit. If a position is vacated during a term, it shall be filled by a person meeting criterion of the resolution and the needs of the commission and subject to council approval.
I see Dan's hand.
Yeah, so thank you. I drafted this language, and I reread the resolution that created us, And it says that if there's nobody that fits the criteria, the council can fit somebody else into the empty seat. So I think we should just add a little language to reflect that. So it's not required that it has to meet the criteria, but you have to start by trying to fill the criteria. You know what I'm talking about? That there were 4 different categories that we were chosen from. Yeah, so I just want to add some language to reflect that the council has that flexibility in the founding document.
Thank you, Dan.
I got my little notebook.
Debbie, were you raising your hand? Wasn't sure. Okay, you were spirit fingering. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Thanks, Dan, for drafting this language. Any other comments, questions? If not, do we have consensus? Can we see consensus around this language?
Looks like there's consensus.
Thanks, yeah, and we will specify the resolution. Okay, great, wonderful. Well, that is everything that I had hoped to get through tonight. The next thing on the agenda is membership changes. So how are folks feeling?
8:47. Do folks want to tap into it a little bit just to see how far we can go? Oh, I see Dan's hand.
I'm sorry, I didn't actually think on my fingers that last time because I was flipping through my notebook to find this sheet of paper. So this is what the exact language that's here, and I didn't see what got typed into the document reflecting what I said. But this is what it says: if there are insufficient qualified applicants to reflect the representatives stated in this paragraph, the council shall appoint commission members to as closely reflect the communities and organizations as stated, and any remaining positions shall be of persons with a demonstrated history of education and commitment to removing the impacts of over-policing and bias-based policing. So that's what it actually says in the resolution. Perhaps
sorry, Dan, I mistook you. I thought that the language regarding the needs of the commission referred to that. I thought that was the language that you had drafted specific to that.
That wasn't the intention of it. I think the needs of the commission meant that we didn't have enough people and we need more people. So I guess, these are the criteria. So if we just, I think what's been added here is the resolution number, and I think that's probably sufficient. I'm sorry to take up your time.
So are you waving your fingers in consensus or, all right.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. I hope everyone drank your late night coffee. Membership changes. Let's at least take a look at it and take a bite out of it. And anything that we can't come to consensus on, we can talk about on Saturday.
And if I just want to put out, if need be, if you run till 9 o'clock, that's okay. If folks really feel like they can power through. Otherwise, it's all about the temperature of y'all, like how you all feeling.
Definitely, and I know it's been a long day for.
It's been a very long day.
Many of us here.
Okay, I give you guys 10 minutes.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Okay, membership changes. The first thing that we have here as an offered edit is all members. I think it's sort of clarifying and condensing a little bit. All members serve based on the appointment by City Council and may only be removed by City Council.
I see fingers spiriting. Okay. Was that a nod from you, Jason? I just want to make sure. Okay, great. There's consensus on that language.
All right, thanks. And then I think here, yeah, for the next section is removal, and the edits start down at the bottom. Yeah, I think we have edits that sort of address all of the sections above. So the first edit recommended, okay, so language basically saying the commission will recommend that city council remove any member who does not give notice on more than 2 occasions that they intend to be absent from a scheduled meeting. Staff will keep attendance and inform commission co-chairs of absences without notice. The co-chairs shall inform the commission in writing of any removal recommendation.
Sophia. Oh, you're muted, I think. Yep, you are.
I know I remember when this came up before, and I don't remember having too many comments about it, but that to me sounds quite harsh to two occasions. And I think we did have this discussion, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I thought that recommending someone for 2 times before, I don't know, it just seems like they're twice 2 meetings is really easy to miss. And you don't know why they missed them. Sometimes there are emergencies, and you know, to say that, it just seems like there should be some caveats there to clarify that. I mean, it just sounds like, you know, no soup for you, right? You know, the soup Nazi, you're out of here. And it just sounds really harsh to me. And I do understand the purpose of wanting to, if someone becomes, I guess, dead weight or deadbeat or whatever terms you want to use for not participating. I think this language bugs me. That's all I'm saying. And I'll listen to everybody else.
Dan and then Angie. I mean, excuse me, Jason and then Angie. Sorry, Dan.
It's 3. It's more than 2, and it's for people who do not bother to tell us that they're going to miss a meeting. They just blow it off. So I think that's a good caveat.
Thank you, Jason. Angie?
Yeah. Sophia, thank you for going down that road. The beginning, it was the end of the no soup for you. I feel like you and I have the same brain sometimes, like we're thinking the same thoughts. But I do have to point out that I appreciate the responsibility of being on this commission very much, and it's really important work. That being said, I also feel like I do have some privilege in that I can move things around. You know, I don't have really young children. I don't have people that depend on me 100% of the time. And the people that are quote unquote blowing us off, I am sure that they probably have reasons. If somebody made it through the selection and got onto this committee, I'd really like to, I hate having such strict standards for, you know, saying that we're going to recommend somebody leaving the commission, because once we recommend somebody leaving the commission, I feel like we've already destroyed that relationship with them, and they are going to leave the commission. Because I know if you guys recommended that I have to leave the commission, I don't think I'd want to come back to another meeting, to tell you the truth. So I just, I don't know about softening this language or how we phrase it, but this is pretty darn harsh, especially on a volunteer commission and with people that have very, very busy lives. So thank you.
Catherine and then Debbie.
So I wonder if we could say remove any member who, without good cause, does not give notice on more than 2 occasions, because then that allows for a conversation if you're in that place, like what happened, and somebody can say, oh, look, I just, you know, had this crisis in my life. I'm sorry, but I'm back now. So that's maybe softens it in response to Sophia and Angie's points. I will say, when we're experiencing a month where we, I think, have 7 meetings, members of this subcommittee and the commission itself. That's extraordinary. So I think, given the number of meetings it looks like we're going to have, we probably do need to, and the challenges we're going to have with filling vacancies. I just think we probably want to balance all that, and I guess I would be in favor of softening this language a little bit in light of those considerations. Thank you.
Debbie and then Seema.
So when we talked about this in the smaller groups, remember, that we had that are subset of this, we thought about putting the good cause or whatever, but then we thought, so who is going to be the judge of that? I mean, it makes it kind of, I don't know, arbitrary. So that was sort of worrisome. And, you know, you can miss all the meetings you want as long, I think, I can't remember what if you keep on going, but if you can't make it to meetings, it's okay. You just have to tell somebody. And so it's not like if you have a conflict, if you have kids or you go on vacation or whatever, it's okay to miss the meetings. You just have to let Samir know, so that he knows that you aren't just not coming and not telling anybody. So, I mean, I don't know, just think if we had a lot of people who weren't telling us that they couldn't make it, and then those of us who could make it showed up and we didn't have a quorum, then we went to all that trouble to get everybody there, and then we couldn't even do any business anyway. So we need to know when people can't come. I mean, I think that's the point of this. So I'm certainly open to other ideas for making it sound less harsh, but I think that there is a problem with the good cause unless there's some way you can figure out who's going to be the judge of that in a really even-handed way.
Seema, thank you. Debbie?
I agree with Debbie. Yeah, no, it's I think it would be even redundant to put something regarding like good cause, because we're asking the city council to consider. We're not actually removing them ourselves. So if there's anything for the city council to consider at that point, if it goes there, then that good cause can maybe come out in that process. But I don't think that necessarily we need to worry about what that is at this point. And as long as we're all aware and committed right now to what we're kind of getting into, it's I think we'll take it fairly seriously. If something comes up, a death of a loved one or something very tragic and unexpected, and there's no time to let anybody know, I'm sure there'll be a way to understand that. So I don't think that necessarily it'd be a heartless approach, but it's just, if there are a set of absences that break a certain number, it would go, and the most recent one would have a good reason, an excusable reason. I don't think any of us would be heartless at that about it. So, now that I'm actually saying it, maybe like some form of caveat language, but I ultimately I still agree with Debbie.
I looked down and then looked up and there were 2 hands. So I see Sophia and Dan's hand. Oh, Sophia has pushed it to you, Dan. So.
Oh, great. Yeah, I haven't spoken on this issue. Here's what I think we could do is take that original language that says does not give notice on more than 2 occasions and take out that they intend to and just say regarding an absence from a scheduled meeting. And that way, that notice can come afterward if they had a car accident or something like that. I think that's removing some of the harshness that is being expressed as a concern, I hope.
Thank you, Dan. Sophia?
Well, I see we're 1 minute over. So I'll keep it brief and know that I understand that we're not going to get finished with this tonight. My comment was, let's all think about this and maybe we can come up with some other language for Saturday to help us get through this. And let's go. That's it.
Thank you, Sophia. So are we in consensus on tabling it? Any other questions, comments?
Well, I'm sorry, I'd be interested to hear from the people that drafted this what they thought about the suggestion I just made about does not give notice more than two occasions regarding an absence from a scheduled meeting. Does that still meet the intent, and how do the folks who are feeling it was too harsh feel about that?
I can speak to this. I was one of the people who drafted it. I think it was me and Debbie. And I think the idea, I think that we had maybe even originally written something like advance notice, someone who does not give advance notice, the idea being to please let us know before the meeting that you will not be coming to the meeting, which regarding an absence doesn't necessarily convey the same idea. Because it could be afterward. Yeah, I think that was the general idea. We wanted to encourage people to let staff and co-chairs know before the meeting, if at all possible.
Angie, and then Debbie, and I just wanted to put out that it is 9:03.
Thank you. I would just like to know if from Samir, if there are people that we are going to have to retroactively ask to leave the committee because they've already missed 2 to 3 meetings without letting somebody know, because I know he's keeping track of that. And I don't know if we want to figure in language to this to make it so we don't have to retroactively, or we need to talk about that somewhat.
So if I may, Debbie, is it okay if I answer that before you go? Would you? Okay. So I'll leave the question over a retroactive application to a future meeting because that might be a longer conversation. But if hypothetically it was applied retroactively, there would be one member that would be has missed more than 2 scheduled meetings without advance notice at present. Everything else would be dependent on how you counted it, whether subcommittees counted, whether it's retroactive, all that sort of thing. But in terms of scheduled public meetings, there would be one member if it was hypothetically applied retroactively. And that's going back over the meetings from December 9th to present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie?
So I hadn't even, in response to Dan's addition about the regarding an absence, so that you could actually say afterwards that, yeah, I couldn't come because I was in a terrible car crash or whatever. So, which wish there was a way that we could think of how to address that sort of thing. But on the other hand, it seems like if we had a blanket thing that let people say, yeah, I couldn't make it to the meeting, I didn't even think about this till tonight, but if there are a lot of people who knew they couldn't make it to the meeting, they didn't say, and they decided they would just tell Samir afterwards, then again, the rest of us, the people who could come might show up and then find out that we couldn't do business because we, you know, the people who knew they couldn't come didn't tell anybody. And then we'd have our staff here, our facilitators, all of us, and public maybe, and we'd be stuck. So I just think this advance notice thing is kind of important for that reason anyway.
Thank you, Debbie. Any other comments? Sophia?
Just one last one. I'm putting it out there just as a thought that we think about this more and consider what kind of effect it would be on the group. And especially if this happens more often than we'd like. And my other question is, are we concerned about them making meetings, or are we concerned about them pulling their weight as a group member? So that's just some thoughts. I'm not sure where it kind of came from or what we're trying to achieve here. And I know there's concerns about having a quorum, and I agree. But I just want to know what the end point of this is, because once, as Angie said, once you suggest somebody goes before the commission, what if the commission says that they're not going to get rid of them and they come back on the team? And how do you think that's going to go well for the rest of us when they've been kind of voted out? Maybe they don't want to leave. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Sophia and Lavisa. And it's 9:08, and I have heard that at least Sophia has suggested to table this. I don't know how anyone else feels. I see a couple nodding heads. I see a thumbs up and some spirit fingers. Lavisa?
Sure, I think it's fine to table this. I guess my response to Sophia was going to be that showing up to meetings it's like the only job, basically, in some ways that commissioners have, right? We can volunteer to do additional tasks. We can volunteer to take on officer roles, but other than that, literally, like, the job is to show up to meetings. And even though it's a volunteer job, it's still a very serious job. And I do recognize, and I want to say thank you so much for bringing up, you know, how are we caring for the relationships that we have with each other? And if someone is perpetually missing meetings, yeah, how do we want to handle that? And is an immediate recommendation for removal after missing 2 meetings the right way? I don't think it's a bad idea to think about that. And maybe this is an appropriate topic for a longer meeting where we can have a longer discussion about it.
All right, Zainab. So thank you, Lavisa. So are we tabling this discussion at this point? Is that what I'm hearing? That's what I saw initially.
Commissioner Handelman wrote something in the chat.
Giving a warning on second miss.
Yeah.
Commissioner Renaud did earlier as well.
Oh.
Ms. Scroll.
Okay. I know that we have a few things that were also put in the parking lot. So Christine, can you read those?
Yes, I have ethical behavior in potentially in the community standards. I have handoffs to future co-chairs from current co-chairs to future co-chairs as a conversation. Facilitation strategies like a weighted stack. And those two, the handoff of the co-chairs and the facilitation strategies going into the operations document and having conversations around those two things. Anything else that I missed?
Okay, I don't think so. I think that I agree with you on that.
Okay.
Are there any other comments that need to be made before we adjourn?
Sorry, I'd like to correct or amend something I just said. I think I said that showing up to meetings is the only job. I really should say it's a fundamental portion of the job of a commissioner.
Thank you, Lavisa.
If I could just say something quick before you wrap up my meeting.
Yes. Yep.
The next subcommittee meeting will be the final scheduled as of yet bylaws work session, which is on Saturday. Looking at the scheduling that folks gave, members of the commission gave, and members of the subcommittee specifically, that meeting would be if the subcommittee were unable to finish it, the scheduling survey would indicate that it would either need to go unfinished to the full commission or that the bylaws subcommittee would need to schedule something again in April because of the time availabilities that were there. There weren't many beyond that date until April. So, but however, the public, interpreters, facilitators, everyone is aware that that meeting can run long. It starts at 1 o'clock and does not currently have a designated end time in that way for a reason. So please schedule accordingly for your day on Saturday.
Thank you, Samir. Also, just want to thank the interpreters for their work today and supporting access to this meeting for other members of Portland. Thank you to the commissioners for your hard work and being here and contributing. And thank you to the public for participating and being here watching this process. And meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for your hard work.
Thanks.